What up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Mikey G Podcast Experience. Shannon, welcome to the show. I'm so excited right now because you are my first official LinkedIn guest. I've been hitting crypto
Oh,
Twitter hard, so you have the honor of being my first hardcore LinkedIn guest. Welcome.
thank you. I'm so excited to be here and looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, we had an incredible intro conversation. We talked a lot about different things in life. You have an amazing, unique story, and I know we're gonna have tons of fun. And like I said before we came on, we're gonna impact some lives today. We're gonna tell human stories. AI, you cannot take that away from us. Although you can, AI can already make something that looks exactly like me and sounds like me. I don't know, but we still have this, and we'll be face to face too, and in real life events. All of those things I think are going to be a big part of our future, and absolutely love what I do here, and I can't wait to do it. Before we get there, little update about myself, and then we'll go into the typical format. So, streaming on LinkedIn now, when I am able to stream on, and it's not overlapping my day work hours, but doing LinkedIn. We're on Twitch. I brought Twitch back, still on X, Abstract, and I'm working on another platform called Blaze, which brings me to my next point. I'm really excited. So, Shannon, I had this guy on, Kevin, who is in the World Video Game Hall of Fame because he was the guy that redesigned Solitaire for the original Windows operating system. And
Wow.
he worked for Microsoft for a while. He's up in the Seattle area. Just a really good guy. But he's worked for like these major epic gaming studios, and he's building a blockchain game right now. But we're gonna try a late night video game podcast where we eat exotic snacks and do food reviews and
Ooh,
play
I
video
love
games.
that.
And I'm just more interested in picking this guy's brain because he's one of those guys that can play a video game and tell you exactly why they put a treasure chest where they put a treasure chest because he's all about game theory and game design. So that's going to be fascinating. But we are
So
going to stream that on a new blockchain focused platform called Blaze. That's why I brought it up. I was approached by Blaze. They're another new streaming platform. You can pay in crypto. You can do all the things on the blockchain. It's going to be tons of fun and exciting. In addition, you have noticed I've stopped tweeting as much on Twitter, crypto Twitter degens. I love you. I still will tweet and create content. It's streaming live right now, but my business makes a lot more sense for LinkedIn and professionals and amazing people like Shannon. And so I'm putting a lot more of my content on young entrepreneur, business focused social networks, or there's huge Reddit forums with millions of people. I don't know if you've heard of this, Shannon, of people just hating corporate America and is trying to figure out how do I make the leap to entrepreneurship or side hustles. People have been millions in Reddit forums trying to figure this out. Guess what content's great for that? What we're about to do. So I've been in the wrong audience for too long. I did it for a lot of reasons, a lot of nostalgia, but I'm excited to be here. Enough about me. The rest is about Shannon. And what we're going to do here is really hear her human story. And before we get to the world famous Mikey G podcast question, just a quick formal, semi formal intro. So, expert in consumer psychology and sales via neuroscience. This is actually why I reached out because I saw your banner and I was like, that sounds freaking fascinating. And I want to talk about that. Ex Microsofty, I didn't know that was a term. Maybe you made that up or maybe it's a thing. Turned serial entrepreneur. Did you make that up or is it a term?
Oh no, everybody in Microsoft uses it.
Oh, okay. So we'll talk
Yep.
about that. And
Okay.
then keynote speaker and crow whisperer. That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
exciting. But the most exciting part is you have another fun fact that I didn't say that not a ton of people know about. So what would that be? And it can be something simple, like I said, but I'm interested. You already said crow whisperer, but I want one more tidbit.
I know that was actually what I was going to use,
Well,
but
let's just
the
use
other one,
let's go with the crow whisperer.
well, well, I'll just do two really fast. I just got done from an 8-month walkabout all over the world, and so happy to be back also in Seattle, actually on Vashon Island. Still getting used to the Pacific time zone, but almost there. And then Crow Whisperer, yeah, I'm actually just was watching a few of them. We can talk about this in a bit, but crows are so smart
They
and they
are.
have the ability to remember if you treated them well or if you treated them poorly. And actually, they have such a good memory that they can remember that grudge so much that they pass it on to their offspring, and then the offspring come and attack you. Conversely, the other day, I was in waiting in line at the ferry dock and I took a picture of it, but I had a crow walked right up to my car door and was just looking at me expecting peanuts, I guess, because
Yeah,
that's what I give him here. So yeah,
that's
it's
fantastic.
important to be nice to crows.
Dude, did not know that existed about crows, but we're gonna talk about that too.
Yeah.
I'm so
Also,
pumped. We're here already.
side note, more stuff. I
Oh,
am an avid Reddit user. I love Reddit. I live on Reddit. And then the whole game developer thing, we should talk about that because I developed a mobile gaming app based in neuroscience research that changes your habits while you play. So it's
whoa, whoa,
all
whoa.
coming together first full
I have
circle.
multiple gaming people that you need to meet. The other guy that just
Okay.
came on, this guy Anton, beautiful human being, super smart. He's building a blockchain app for dedicated to sleep, because sleep's one of the number one habits that all entrepreneurs suffer from, or just people in general suffer from. And what's
Mhm.
interesting is the gamification and rewards are able to be you're able to do some more unique things when you're attached to Web3 and the blockchain. So I actually have a ton of gamification. I have another guy, this guy, beautiful human being, has built it's called Mighty Study, and it's a Web3 application totally dedicated to learning anything, right? And obviously AI is intertwined with that. So I have tons of people for you to meet. Don't even worry about that. That is actually part of the benefit of beyond this experience. This is the summit. Like this is the top of the mountain part of the experience. But since you've come through the podcast, I also have a ton of awesome people that have been through this podcast that are part of my network. But I'd love to do introductions when it makes sense. So
Whoa.
don't worry about
Yeah.
that, and we're building a whole AI LLM platform attached to it as well, so this is just the beginning. This is just the
Wow.
beginning, I promise you that. With that being said, we're here, people. The world famous Mikey G podcast experience. Question, Shannon, how did you get the seat you're sitting in today? Please give me chapter 1, 2, and 3. To reiterate for the audience that's already watching or will listen to the podcast in the future, chapter 1 is your childhood. Were you a tinker? Did you play sports? Did you have a super vivid memory you want to start off at? Parents, parental figures, mantras, be kind, work hard, pay it forward, whatever that may be that you still live by today. Start anywhere and we'll often go or run. Chapter 2 is your, I would say, schooling and beginning a professional career, maybe that Microsoft time, maybe you started entrepreneurship earlier. Remember, the context here that I'm really interested in is your failures, because those failures and lesson learned are the thing that is gold for people to understand those insights. Because I'm convinced life is all about insights, and having those insights help you so much exponentially. Especially, like I said, there's going to be somebody that understands you because they relate to your background, and you're going to be able to give them that insight to give them a head start. Chapter 3 is your current company, your current entrepreneurship endeavors, why you got there, and what does the next 3 to 6 months look like. And then after that, we'll wind it down and call it a day. So start anywhere in chapter 1, childhood, you want to, and we'll take it from there.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for all that. And
Yeah.
yeah, excited to share. Let's just travel back, when I was a little child, like 10 years ago. Just kidding.
Same.
So there was, actually, I still remember a dream from when I was a kid.
Oh,
And just to give you a little bit of context, my mom was a single mom. She worked two jobs. Mom and dad divorced young. He was in the Navy, traveling around the world, and she lived next to my grandparents, and I was over there a lot. My great grandmother also lived with us for a time to help out, and then my uncle. So it was very much like a little village, always something going on, always something happening. So many times, so mom could go to her second job, I would stay over at my grandparents and I'd fall asleep because, kids go to sleep really early. I mean, I'm in bed by 9 most nights now, so maybe it's same, but I can remember being just, like, floating in this laundry basket, and I was floating to the house that was right next door to my grandparents. I never really said anything about the dream until later, but my mom told me that's how she carried me home when she got done with her second job, was to put me with the clean laundry and carry me
That's mind blowing.
to the hill.
And
But,
so
yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead. Do you have something else? Or I already have questions.
No, go for it. I was just really gonna end it with, it really was a village, and I had a lot of people in my life who were very special to me and loved me a bunch. And I was the first grandkid, so, I was the favorite also.
That's fantastic. So you already said so many things. Now remember, this entire process is reflective, right? I'm not expecting you to think about these things as it's going. But you said, and I've had plenty of people on this podcast, and it comes in many different forms. But seeing your mom still put food on the table, be a single mother, working really, really hard. Let's start there. But then to the second layer on, you said you had many influential people in your life. Back in this time frame, what were the things that you think impacted to help you make the person that you are today? And this comes in so many forms, but I would love to hear the traits that you think really stuck with you.
Yeah. Well, I saw how hard my mom was working,
Mhm.
and she wasn't really making a lot of money. I think she was a secretary during the day, and she did data entry at night. If you got kids don't know,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
was a process in between A and B to get the stuff into the computers. So I saw how hard she was working, and she just wasn't, we never really had a lot of money. My grandparents very traditional. My grandfather worked at Hallmark Cards. He actually barely graduated high school, but he ended up building these large, complex card cutting machines. Just had a natural, innate ability to have that sort of engineer mind
Mhm.
without any formal education, which was like always amazing, right?
Right.
My grandma, they were from Middle Kabul, Missouri, if anybody out there is around that area, and she wanted to live in the city. So when actually he was in the Korean War, she came up to Kansas City. She got 2 jobs, babysitting even, to try to prove that more money could be made in the city. And eventually when he got back, my grandpa realized this, and so instead of having to be a farmer's wife, she got to stay in the city.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I saw how hard everybody worked, and they were really frugal and, like, I almost never got the fancy chocolate chip cookies. It was usually the cookies my grandpa liked at
Right.
Aldi, but I saw how hard they were working, and to be honest, I kind of thought, "Okay, I don't really wanna work that hard at jobs that I don't really like." So it did have quite an influential impact on me as a kid.
So, talk to me a little bit more about that. The last thing you said was fantastic. I don't wanna work that hard at jobs I don't really like. When did you start having or, like that's that's an interesting reflection to be able, because I kinda went through life numb. I didn't think about that. I
Mm,
just thought it was expected that you just went to work, and I never thought like, "Well, I don't
mhm,
wanna go to job I don't wanna go to work with a job I don't like." I'm just like, whether I like it or not, that's just what you do.
mhm.
Talk to me about that. Like, did that not come till later on? Or did you recognize that from an early age about what you were passionate about and concentrating on things that you liked? That's an interesting thought to me. When did that come to you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say that probably came somewhere in teenagerhood,
Okay.
but, as a kid, I was super athletic. I was in dance,
Okay.
traveled all over the country for competitions and things. And I think a stray dog just opened my door, but I'm not sure. There were stray dogs out earlier.
Do you wanna go check it?
Anyway,
You can take a break. Go for it. It's no big deal.
it's okay. I don't hear anything. I think they just came back because I had let them in earlier and gave them a treat. So they probably just want a treat again. Um,
I mean, you can go check if you want. It's not the end of the world.
no, I don't think they're here. But yeah,
Okay,
so
super
I was in
athletic, you were in dance. What else were you doing?
well, dance took a lot of time and it was very expensive. Like my grandmother was one of my favorite people ever, but she was extremely practical.
Right.
And she would ask me, do you want to make a career of this when I'm like 8 or 9? Because she's like, your mom is working her hands to the bone to pay for your dance costumes and your classes and things. And I mean, eventually that I would say it impacted me because at some point I was always very cognizant of money, even at a young age, just
Right.
because, and she had good intentions, but my grandmother kind of like put that filter in front of me to where I had to always sort of consider it.
Mhm. As far as competition and,
Mhm.
going through all of that, looking back, what are some of those things that you learned? I mean, that comes on so many different forms as well too, as people experience competition, being part of group sports. What did you take from that?
Uh, Practice, so much time and practice, and that your teammates
Yeah,
are counting on you. And
yeah,
especially in dance, because you have to be perfectly timed and, and in sync. And if you're off, it just completely discredits the entire performance.
yeah,
So it was instilled early on that you have to have a good team around you and you have to spend the time to be able to excel at anything.
yeah. How much how much does practice and team how relevant is that to you think professional career doing the things that you're doing now today?
Oh, it's 100% relevant. Um, I think a lot of people have a misconception on what it takes to be successful. A
Mm,
lot of times you only really come into someone's consciousness whenever you've kind of made it. And maybe
mm,
you have a big account, or maybe you're featured on some podcast, or you're in a magazine, or you're giving a speech, or whatever. Um, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, how did you do it? I wish I were so lucky." But, maybe luck's a variable, but it's a whole bunch of hard work that it took to get to that point. I saw this, I guess it was a picture, an image, or infographic that basically it's like the tip of an iceberg. This is the success that everybody sees, and then all of the hard work that happens down here
oh
that
my
nobody
gosh.
cares about, nobody has any sort of visibility into.
Yeah,
So I think the amount of time and dedication it takes to be good at insert anything is
yeah.
often underestimated in people.
And do you think that, um, this back to this grit and hard work and all of these things take that perseverance? In your mind, is it because you saw and admired your mom you mentioned your mom and your upbringing, or is it a combination of that and maybe, let's say, passion and curiosity? What does that
Mhm.
look like to you? Or it could be a bajillion other things, right? But what does that look like to you to get you through that very thick iceberg to get to that peak? What are your thoughts
Yeah.
there?
Couple things. So first, I would say you have this part in your brain called the mid anterior cingulate cortex
Mhm.
that has been linked to your tenacity. So you can make that thinky part more tenacious,
Mm.
given if you do some things. Like for instance, you do things you don't like, or you. For me, it'd be running. Go run. No, I don't want to do that, but I'll do it
Right.
anyway, or fold the laundry, or whatever it is. So that's one piece. I think another piece is resilience. And there are some very interesting studies with rats, of course, poor rats. But essentially, they wanted to know what makes a rat resilient.
Hmm.
And I'll just kind of keep it high level and say they did some not nice things to rats. And what they found is that the rats who had too much adversity were kind of, they didn't do well. They were kind of fetal position, like not literally, but they weren't resilient. They just didn't do well. Then you have the rats that didn't really experience any adversity. They were not resilient whatsoever. They experienced something harsh, took them a very long time to recover if they did. They found that the rats who had a moderate amount of adversity were the most bouncy and able to come back.
What's your
So,
I've heard of this,
mhm,
by the way. What is
okay,
your opinion
yeah.
about that? What is your kind
So,
of practice? Because you've dove deep in this and dealt with a lot of people from this neuroscience perspective, sales perspective. What could you
mhm.
layer on that from your experience?
In terms of what makes someone resilient
Yeah.
or,
Like, well,
okay.
one, do you agree with that study? Right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
does that sound about right? And then maybe what does that look like in a person of like medium adversity? What does that mean? Like it how do we start talking about what medium adversity looks like?
Yeah. So, yes, I absolutely agree with the study. It's in line with what I've seen. And what does medium adversity mean? I mean, especially if you're in sales, guess what? You're going to be hearing no a lot.
Mhm.
And if you are too afraid to even make the ask, then you're not going to build up your resilience because you're not experiencing any adversity in that space.
Mhm.
I mean, adversity can be anything. It could be being rejected by a prospect, by a romantic interest, by your parents, by a friend, whatever. Adversity can come from anywhere. But it is a matter, and it will, because that's just what we're doing here on life. But it's a matter of how we deal, manage, respond to the adversity is how it ends up helping us or hurting us.
So that's interesting that you say you kind of like gave different examples because like my head immediately goes to like adversity and resilience is trauma, right? And like, okay,
Mhm.
so how much trauma has a human being had? It has it been really horrific things, or has that been none at all and they've just been spoon fed everything? That's where my head goes. But the way you responded, it seems more nuanced than that. One, because you can divine adversity in so many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, adversity is essentially happening to us when we don't something we don't like happening to us.
Right. That's
So, whatever
interesting.
that is, that can be considered adversity. Now, your resilience is a linear scale. So, you've met people who are like, "Oh my gosh, I had the worst experience at Macy's," or
Right.
wherever, and it just ruins their day, and they wanna talk about it, and they wanna keep the negative energy going. Whereas some people, like the sales rep at Macy's, kind of rude, maybe she's having a bad day, and they go on with their life. So, the latter is someone who's extremely resilient, bouncy, doesn't let negative stimuli impact them,
Uh-huh.
versus someone who carries it, lets it ruin their day, brings the energy home, infects everybody else with it.
Right.
So it's a matter of how well do you respond to a negative stimuli?
Interesting. I like that take. Have you dealt with talking about the people that have a bad thing ruin their entire day, how to deal with that, or is that more out of your purview when it comes to things that you deal with? Or are you just using it for
It's
an example?
yeah. I mean, it's funny because I have family members who tend to do that. So when
Mhm.
I speak with them, it's like, okay, I gotta get like emotionally ready for this. But it also happens a lot in sales. And before I got into sales, I was actually helping people overcome habits using neuroscience. And whenever you have someone who just like the second they mess up or they make one little misstep in this plan, they have to blow everything up and they go back to whatever they were doing before, and
Mm,
everything is lost.
mhm.
Or if you're looking at someone who is trying to make a sale, let's say in the LinkedIn DMs, and the first rejection they get, it crushes them.
Right.
Yeah, you do have to coach through that. And one of the easiest way to build up your tenacity is just to do the thing that you don't want to do. So if it's really
Mm,
bugging you out to get in the DMs, get in the DMs.
right.
I have my clients go through a no quota where I need you to have 10 no's a week. And that's actually a very small amount of no's. But it's just the idea that you got to go through and you've got to experience that because, and you've probably heard this, whenever you experience rejection, it registers as the same as physical pain in your brain. So it does hurt, but the more that you do it, the more you build sort of like an immunization up to
Yeah.
it, and it doesn't really bother you so much.
Beautiful, beautiful insight already, and we've kinda gone down further down the road, so I do wanna bring it back, but I had such a good question. We were talking about taking no's. Oh, I wanted to ask this before we kinda go back to more high school, anything else about, childhood before we start getting into education. One of the things that comes up about this topic time and time again on this podcast and entrepreneurship and side hustles to begin with is this notion of failure, but then also knowing how much failure is enough and then when to move on. Because you did make it a really interesting point about the people that experience failure and just blow it all up way too soon. But then there's also you go way too long and you probably should have moved on. In your
Mhm.
experience, when you've seen this, what are some characteristics or kind of tips or insights that you've seen that maybe help reveal that this person maybe should be moving on and they're just beating their head against the wall? It's such a
Yeah,
hard thing to determine, right?
it is actually. And it's probably going to be different for each and every person because at the end of the day, everything that we are going through, even though people think that it's happening to us, it's really happening for us to learn and grow. And like that's kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
different
Mm-hmm.
sort of topic altogether.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to really know when enough is enough. And, that's kind of like the high level approach, but always the market is going to give you indications. Like, how long have you been pumping your content out or trying a particular offer? Like, are you getting anything from it?
Yeah.
Because the market will tell you and give you indications of the things that work, the things that don't. And so looking at those analytics and really understanding them is only going to help you. And if you're trying everything under the sun, you're not getting any sort of engagement or clients or what have you, then yeah, you gotta figure out like how many more times and approaches do you want to try before you feel like you're gonna be burning out.
Right. Yeah. And I think a couple things that you said that I think about a lot is one, is it going to burn you out? This goes back to this passion thing. If you don't have passion, you're going to, but then you hear this term all the time, or these famous people say this all the time. You were you quit one day before you blew up, right? Or you got one more day. What is your thought about that concept? Is that more marketing jargon or just people rehashing the same damn slogan? Or because it's along the concept that we're talking about. What is your perspective on
Mhm.
that?
Yeah. So there's another sort of example I'll give. So if you've ever dug an irrigation ditch
Mm,
where there's a body of water and you're digging and you're digging, you're digging, you're digging, 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 and guess what? You have zero water coming through there. Dig some more, still zero water. Dig some
yeah,
more, still zero water. So, yeah, I think that is something everybody's going to struggle with. You've got
yeah,
to figure out, are we just going to continue to dig till we hit any kind of water? Because if you don't hit the water, you get 0% no matter how far you dig.
right.
So part of it really is just going or pivoting or adjusting or not giving up
Yep.
until you get the water. I know one of my friends has an accelerator out here in the Bellevue, Seattle area, and he has 10 successful exits. He's mentored hundreds, maybe thousands of founders.
Hmm.
And he says the one thing that differentiates a founder from being successful is their tenacity, because there's always a pivot, there's always a new offer, there's something you can try if you still have heart for it. And that's like the second part of it is the passion. If you still have the passion there and you still believe in what you're doing, then maybe it is worth, another pivot or two.
Dude, I love that, and I'm glad I've come full circle, because that's what I believe in too, right? I use my podcast as an example in the beginning, right? 100%, I should not be on crypto Twitter because those people just want to understand how to make the next 4,000x, which really isn't reality, right? Um, and but because I had passion, I never gave up. And I still built a solid following and I built a ton of network, right? But it was never the exponential growth of other people that I saw that I knew they were doing behind the scenes to get popular and make a lot of money that I just couldn't bring myself to do.
Mm,
But I
yeah.
knew that it's a product market fit with my content is really the miss, and I just needed to move somewhere else, and that's the new thing I'm gonna try, but that tenacity and that passion, I never quit because of that. So a great example of what you're talking about, and I 100% believe with you, and uh, I love your analogy of your friend. Maybe they should come on the podcast too if they're open to having a podcast conversation. But no, that's fantastic. Let's go back to your childhood though, because this was an amazing tangent. I love to, if we're going down a really good path, I'm not going to stop that. Like I said, this is totally
Cool.
organic and natural. Going
Nice.
back to what you were talking about the childhood, we're already getting a really good sense, right? You're into sports, or you're into dance, you're competitive. You saw your mom grind. You're starting to build a little bit of understanding what resilience, tenacity, all of these things mean. One of the things that you mentioned that I would be interested on, because I love this topic to cover it in everybody's childhood, is you mentioned, I think it was an uncle or grandfather about engineering. He could have been an engineer. I never went to formally train. But what I heard when you said that was creativity. Talk to me a little bit
Mhm.
about what creativity meant to you as you're coming of age, starting to go through middle school, high school, because I think it's a very important topic for every entrepreneur side hustle person.
I absolutely agree. Um, Creativity is so important. And I will say, as a side note, I probably got away from that for a little bit,
Mm,
probably in my 30s.
okay.
I, at that time, was like trying to climb the corporate ladder, and ain't a lot of room for creativity in the corporate ladder, usually.
Tell me about it.
Um, but it's so important, especially whenever you are an entrepreneur. I don't have to tell you, some of the most brilliant minds have been called crazy,
Yeah.
but they have ultimate creativity. And then, side note again, you actually cannot be creative if you don't feel psychologically safe. Another fun
Ooh.
study, if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go down that rabbit
Okay,
hole real quick. You tell me
let's
about the study.
let's go follow the white rabbit.
Hmm.
Um, So basically, they had a mother and her child come in, and there were a bunch of toys. And so the researcher was just observing, really. There was a researcher there observing, kid playing with toys, mom was there. So they let that happen 5 or 10 minutes. And then the second condition, which was when the mother left the room. So the kid has all these really cool new fancy toys, but as soon as the mom left the room, the kid stopped playing with toys, stopped being creative, immediately needed that safety and was
Mhm.
concerned where the mother was.
Mhm.
So it didn't matter what kind of cool toy the researcher brought out, kid was not interested
Mm,
because the fear and threat of safety
mm,
was present without the mother being there. As soon as the mom comes back in, the kid starts playing again, after he or she settles
mhm.
down. But the point is if you don't have a basic sense of safety, you do not have the ability neurologically to be creative because you
Beautiful.
are so scared about your safety. A lot of times, even people might just go into default mode, just be like, this is exactly what I need to do. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just hunkering down. And when you're in that state, when your amygdala is off the chain and your nervous system is out of whack,
Yeah.
you just cannot be creative.
That totally makes sense, and it goes back to this comes up time and time again as well too, which is and I'd love your thoughts or your version of this, the basic needs need to be covered, especially when you're young,
Yep.
right? Like, food on the table, feeling relatively safe, but then also you use this word, which I think is more important, I would say safety and love. Because I've had people on this show that have had, like, not clean water, dirt
Yeah.
floors, no
Yeah.
electricity, but they felt loved and they felt relatively safe. Meanwhile, there's a freaking world war going, like, not a world war, but an uprising going on a mile away from their house, and they
Yeah.
came out okay.
Yeah.
And it was because of this love. It was because of this relative, quote unquote, safety. They all say the same thing. What are your thoughts there? What is your version of it? Anything to expand on this concept?
Yeah. I mean, I totally buy that. Love provides such, we're all seeking love at all points in our life all the time in all different kinds of ways and capacities. And so if there's that sense of love and safety, then yeah, I'm sure they were able to find some creativity and that's a whole another topic really in terms of like what you get used to.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I totally concur. We're all after love. We all want to be loved.
Talk to me about so let's start kind of like fast forwarding a little bit to middle school, high school. What I'm interested now is we've talked about a lot of beautiful concepts already, and thank you so much for giving your thoughts and everything. This is already amazing, amazing conversation. I'm interested next in what are you starting to get interested in and is why, right? Like, so you said dance and competition. Is it reading? Is it math? Is it I hate school, I don't want to deal with it? What does that look like at this time in your life?
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I'll just give kind of a high level. I
Yeah.
was more in the survival mode.
Mhm.
They're, you know, have a great relationship today, but my mom eventually married my stepfather and they've been married like 35 years at this point.
Right.
But, it wasn't I didn't have a good time
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
that. Actually graduated early at 17 and moved out. Um, and actually, or just a further demonstration of the concept we're talking about here. When I was in that environment, my grades were very, mid at BCs.
Yeah.
When I moved out, even though I was on my own, I was paying my own rent, and I was even driving back to high school about 30 minutes every day. College level courses, I got A's, all A's. So that tells you there just how much that sense of psychological safety and love really impacts you as a human being.
That is super profound. And thank you for sharing that. Like,
Yeah.
think what was it also about being uh, alone or out of that environment that made you that you think allowed you to excel, to start changing that perspective?
I just had space to breathe and relax. I was a nerd in high school, so I would go to high school and I had very few friends. Like, fun story. So I was athletic, so I was still doing, volleyball, dance, and cheerleading. And the very beginning of the pep rally, they introduced the football players, they introduced the cheerleaders, and when they introduced the cheerleaders, they said your name, you did a jump, and everybody cheered. Well, guess what? They got to me, and it was like crickets. My stepbrother was in the audience, my friends of like three other nerds in the audience, but it was crickets. So I didn't feel safe at school. I didn't feel comfortable at home. So I had no respite. And as soon as I was able to move out and establish my own space, I found the ability to breathe, to feel comfortable, to feel safe, so that I could then focus on graduating high school,
Yeah, yeah,
getting the hell out of there,
yeah. That's
which
this.
I graduated early, by the way. So,
That's what's cool is this is just yet another example about that's how important safety is and how different forms of safety can come. There's no right or wrong. There's no black or white. Everything's so nuanced. And you sharing that story again, that point alone, with all the other trillion things you've already said, is going to help somebody get perspective. So let's move on to you're starting to come into your own because you've made these decisions. You're starting to excel at college level courses. What are you what are you really starting to get super interested in? What is fascinating to you at this point?
psychology and the human brain, but
Why?
neuroscience, like the technology, or I just wasn't maybe able to really dig into the peer-reviewed scientific journal articles like I am now.
Mhm.
But psychology. And so I went deep on the psychological front, and I thought actually that I wanted to be a psychiatrist until I did a practicum actually at a behavioral health center.
Mhm.
And this is again a whole nother topic, but I found out real quick how broken the system is, how you can essentially sacrifice your entire life, mental well-being, to do all you can do for these kids and still not make a dent. And I know many, many people do, and like kudos to everybody out there who does this work. But I very quickly through that practicum realized that I was going to burn out if I continued on that route. And the kids that were doing, I call them kids, but they were, young 20s, they were being paid very low wage and were expected to work 12 hours
Right,
overnight.
right.
So I was like, none of that really sounds like a lot of fun. So I started after that transitioning more into business psychology.
And so, was there an aha moment on the business psychology side, or was it more just like, "I see I'm gonna get burned out. I don't wanna spend my time here. I need to figure something else out." How did you do that transition there?
I don't even remember the specifics, but I do know that I had an amazing professor, an undergrad, and he had invited me to a couple of his graduate classes. And again, because I'm a big nerd, I went. And he was talking about comparative psychology, and that's where we can use animals' natural abilities to help humankind. So, for instance, if you would tie a wire, like a non-live wire, around or string a weasel and let them rewire, the entire brand new. building, like that would take what? I don't know, 5 minutes. Like how else would you do that with a pipe? Dolphins can detect bombs. Dogs have so many abilities to help us. So that was just fascinating to me. But in that class, we also talked about business psychology. And that's where I thought, okay, well, that makes more sense. That's something where I don't have to work as hard as my mom. I can, afford to pay my bills and I still really like what I'm doing. So I started
Right.
going down that path.
All right, take us down. We're kind of really transitioning into chapter 2. And
Yep.
so, what I'm really interested here again, you can take us through a little bit of chronological order of like how you got into business psychology, uh, but really then start, let's hit your first one or two aha moments. Oh man, this is either a massive failure or a massive light bulb moment for me as you're going down this business psychology route.
Yeah. Well, here's a big aha moment I had. So I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit in undergrad. I opened a roofing company. Um,
Interesting.
I so in all honesty, I was married and my ex-husband was a roofing person, but I mean that's really kind of how I started cutting my teeth in that kind of sales. Like I had actually sold gym memberships beforehand. So I was like starting to get into sales at that point while putting myself through school.
Yeah.
But, he did the roofing, the actual construction side of it. I helped in sales and I helped on the business side. And the funny thing is, I realized we would go and we would do the door knocking. We would spend so much time in these people's homes, and the amount of time that we spent talking about roofing, warranties, features, maybe under 5% of the time. Most of the time was learning about them, talking about their interests, and above all, understanding what's important to them and creating a sense of trust.
Mm,
And so that was a huge aha for me. I'm like, you don't even have to talk about the roof. They just trust you and away
yeah.
you go. The
Yeah.
contract signing is the last thing you do and it takes 2 seconds.
Right. Interesting. And did that so at this moment in time, were you already starting to go down the psychology of business?
Oh yeah.
Or
I was
okay.
deep in.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you were already
And
deep in and you're starting to see this come to practical, like, realization, right?
yep. Yep.
So
Seeing it.
so talk to me about how the study and, like, this first aha moment, did that just make you wanna go deeper? Are there lessons learned, or can we stop here and give kinds of some practical elements to people that don't understand the relationship between building rapport and selling? Anywhere you wanna go, whatever direction makes the most sense to you.
Yeah, let's see. So, I could just stop here and say, I think the most important thing that people forget, and I think it's going to get worse with AI, as you kind of alluded to in the beginning, is that ultimately people want to buy from another people. They
Mm,
want a human.
mhm,
So you have to put the human first. You have to make them at ease. You have to understand what's important to them. I tell my clients all the time, if someone is interested in hiring you, the number one question they have, well, there's two questions really. One, can I trust this person?
yeah,
And two, can this person get me what I want? This is
mhm,
the outcome I want. Can Mike get me that outcome? They don't
mhm,
think in terms of features and all that stuff. They think about, I have a problem. I want a solution. Can Mike get it for me?
mm.
So if you learn nothing else from our chat, just take that away. Focus on the human and find a solution that works for both of you.
So, I've been on this thesis a long time, hence why I do what I do, right? I think people are fascinating, I think what we're doing is one of the most beneficial things we can do as humans. Question to you on this. And I say
Mhm.
this all the time on the podcast and reiterate this a lot in my content. These principles are not complex. They really aren't.
They're not.
We all bleed red blood, treat people like treatable. We all have the same anxieties and depressions and thoughts and fears. Like that is common against the 8 billion people that live on this earth. Why do we make principles like this so damn confusing and complex?
Oh,
Now let's take it
great
from not
question.
because that's a very holistic question. Take it from the sales, take it from the sales perspective, right? Why do we
Yeah.
why do we not just go into a sale in these conversations to say, "Oh, they probably wanna be able to trust me, like me as a human being, and then we can talk about the product." What gets in the way there? Why do we make it so damn confusing?
Oh, people like to live in their heads. There's a lot
Mhm.
of SOPs and standard procedures, and as a company grows, you get all of these playbooks and things. I'm not saying playbooks can't be helpful,
Right.
but if they're getting away in the way of you just helping the person, throw it out, man. Like, find a couple things and have it in the back of your mind, but just have a conversation with the person. Why does it happen? I don't know. Why do people overthink? Why do people create unnecessary complexity in practically everything that we do? Why does it take 20 years to fix a bridge in Seattle when in Japan they have it done in a week?
Mm.
Well, these are the questions of the universe.
Process and procedures that so from the sales perspective, again, you said an awesome another really interesting thing. We tend to create these tools and these things that we think are going to help out, but inevitably create cumbersome processes, get us further from the truth, further from the end goal. What are the tools in sales when it comes to this concept of we just need to treat people like treat people that you actually think are effective, that are
Well, it
actually
depends.
useful?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the kind of sale, for instance.
Mhm.
Like one of the first obstacles you're going to face is how do you get their initial attention? So that's reticulating activating system, the RAS filter. How do you get past someone's RAS filter so they
Mhm.
pay attention to what you're saying?
Right.
Um, if you try to reach out to people on LinkedIn, there's one set of problems. If you're trying to find a decision maker in an enterprise, that's a whole nother set of problems. So it depends on the kind of sale.
Yeah.
But either way, you're going to need to get through that filter. How you do it is entirely up to you and should be completely specific to the person and your style as well.
And what I'm hearing is one of the things that we do might be detrimental is saying, here's a broad-based playbook that should apply to X scenario when it's way more nuanced than that. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah, and I think too, people can tell, if it's boilerplate
Mm,
or if it's too perfect. And especially on a place like LinkedIn, people want like a little bit of mess. Like one of my little secrets that is really nothing, but it seems to make a difference is I don't use capitalizations. So it's just like how they know I'm a human,
the stream of thought.
it's
Yeah.
unlikely that I'm an AI or an automation, and if I have a typo, I just leave it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
funny that we're here now, whereas before it was like, don't have a
We
typo, but
we
now it's
went the
like,
complete
means
we
there's
have
a human on the end.
degraded in human language and speech, whereas they are more effective to spell wrong and type in fragments than you are to talk like an educated human being.
I know.
Oh,
I
man.
frequently feel that. Like
Yeah.
I frequently feel that.
Well,
But
you know
yeah,
what's interesting
it,
though is I do really do think it's this weird one. We're in this a huge paradigm shift, right? So right now it's
mhm.
taboo to see the M dash, but
Yes, my
6
business
months
partner hates that, by the way. He's
6
like,
months
I
from
always used to
now
use it.
yeah, 6 months from now, it'll be accepted. I always use the analogy of, like, I was in big brand advertising, and listen, we had the data to serve you custom ads in early 2000s. but that didn't really become prominent till like a decade later because it was just
Yeah.
very creepy to say, "Hey, Shannon, I know you want that handbook or whatever you were looking at yesterday because we know
Yeah.
exactly where you were." Like that was really creepy. Now we expect
Mhm.
that and get pissed off if we don't want that. Where the same
Yeah.
thing with AI. I think the other huge paradigm shift that's going to change though is we are visual audio people. And so writing in my mind, these systems are actually going to become less and less around written content. It's going to become a lot of audio visual.
Hmm.
And you're going to be
Interesting.
talking to, like, for instance, I don't know about you, but I don't I'm sick of typing to Claude and Chat GPT. I just talk to it,
Yeah.
right? I talk to all of these
Dictation.
AIs and LLMs, and your Cortana, which is like, or Jarvis is Iron Man's like little agent, right? That will be a entity that you converse and talk to. Like that is the new form of communication. So it'll be interesting to see how this all shifts.
Mhm.
What I wanted to ask though is back to the authenticity.
Mhm.
How important and how do you help people find their authentic self? I think it's pretty important, which you've been
Mhm.
hitting at. That's like authenticity is key when you're having conversing, especially in sales. How do you talk about that to people you're working with on how to find that? Because that's a tough nut to crack for some people
Mhm.
because it requires deep, meaningful conversation with yourself, right?
Exactly. It requires reflection.
Yeah.
So actually that's one of the very first things I do with my clients is I take them through a sales style exercise and they just need to have a point of view. They can change it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but they just need to have a point of view that feels good and natural to them. Because if they don't feel natural, they're going to mess it up. It
Yeah.
needs to feel like second nature. So it's really important. So yeah, that's why I do it at the very beginning.
Interesting. And it is, but what are the things, are there certain questions or conversations or books that you ask them to read to start? Because I have this whole theory. This is one of the things I want to build with AI is the biggest pandemic we're about to hit is sense of self, right? You know, jobs are being taken away.
Mm.
They will be taken away by the millions. I think it's gonna be way worse than people think, because this stuff is insanely efficient and incredibly smart. And when you wrap up a majority of, let's just say, America, white collar, they wrap their identity up in their job title and how much they're getting paid. When you
Yeah.
rip all of that away, you are in a real grave situation, and the only way you can get through that is having a true conversation about yourself with yourself on what do you care about and who are you?
Yeah, so this is a big, huge another topic that I'm happy to get into, but there are discussions and there's people out there who currently say we are going through some kind of awakening
Mm,
and awakening of who am I really once I sort of strip away the ego.
yeah.
So, not saying, you know, ego in the sense of I have this job and
Mhm.
I am a, sales expert and that's who I am. And no, it's deeper than that. It's who really are you at the core?
Mhm.
Like what is your spirit? And I'm
Yeah.
sure you probably didn't expect that to be a word I use today coming from a neuroscience perspective, but what is your spirit? Fun, lighthearted, silly, but also deeply care about helping people understand their brain so they can use it to their benefit and others.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a whole nother big conversation about who are you and what do you really tie value to?
And so when you have those conversations, are there any practical examples of what you use to start that conversation? Is it read a book? Are there prompting questions? What does that look like to you? I think that's one of the things
Yeah.
I'm interested in.
I mean, I have a little worksheet that I take everybody through. It asks things like, what are your core values. What's
Mm,
your core
okay.
value benefit
Yeah.
that you give to your customer?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how your solution aligns with your values.
Uh-huh.
We kind of just take it through a step by step set of questions. I'm happy to send it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, no, I was just and you answer my question. You have a worksheet, right? And you ask
Yeah.
practical questions about what your value are and how your values align to what your service or product are. And I think that's at the end of the day is what we're talking around is values at the end of the day. And what are the questions
Yeah.
that you need and it's different for everybody to get to what are your core values and why? And be fully 100% committed to as why you think the way you think. Crazy enough, right? Like, it comes in so many forms and fashions. Like I said, I really didn't have these crazy realizations till freaking I almost died, right? I had, like, some really massive health crisis I had to go through for me to have the real deep conversation I needed to have with myself. I think a lot of people go through their whole lives and never have the conversation. And so
Totally agree.
the the question is how do you get there through there? But I cannot stress enough how critically important it is. Some of the best companies out there, again, why are they good? Because they've been very clear about what their mission, vision, and value is that they provide. That all starts with the internal conversation of sense of self and why am I here and what I am I doing what I'm doing. But it's
Mhm.
amazing how many people just skip that step. It's incredible. I've had many of founders that have come kind of through conversations with me um, that, by the way, can still be successful to a certain degree. Will they ever hit, uber success? No, but you can s that's the crazy part is you still can hit success and not be totally solidified and cleared on that stuff. And
Yeah.
that's the nuance that happens with all of this. Fascinating conversation. Fantastic conversation. I knew this was gonna be beautiful. I am now interested in you gave us our first light bulb moment. Hit me with your
Hmm.
first epic failure and things that
Okay.
started to really start changing the course or trajectory of your um I need to start looking at things differently. I want to start going down a different career path. You said you were starting to climb corporate America ladder. Maybe let's talk about 2 to 3 big instances in this moment of your life and then we can start transitioning into why are you currently doing what you're doing and talk about a little bit of the future. But I don't want to skip over chapter 2 because we've only talked about really the light bulb moment with the roofing and then we did a couple other tangents which were fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I'd say there's a lot of, and I'll just briefly say, so I wrote my thesis on what makes an effective salesperson, and I
Mm,
fully, at the time, believed it was going to be only behavior, but it turns out that there's a combination of personality and behavior traits that have to be in concert, really, for someone to be successful at sales. So that was kind of an unusual finding for me, but it also, like, because at the time, I was very concrete evidence, miracle, or get out of here. I don't want to see it.
right, right,
But personality is a lot more difficult to measure. I mean, people do it all the time with psychometric testing,
right.
but just realizing that it's a concert of both personality and behavior that you got to have.
Interesting. So I didn't think about this because I always put it as simple as this. I actually hate sales, and I probably like your version of sales. I hate sales because I've always been pounded on it's about metrics, and honestly, some of the best salespeople I know are ruthless, and I don't have that in me, right? Like
Yeah, that's
I
your
can,
sales style,
yeah, I
not
just don't.
ruthless.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a sales style. So talk to me about the personality sides because I can understand behaviors like high level probably what some of them will be, but the personality thing I haven't really heard the angle on. So what are your findings? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So I think I looked at like 20 different characteristics, but the top ones were adaptability.
Mhm.
So being able to understand what your customer needs, being able to adapt to meeting their needs, and then a resilience component as
Yeah.
well. So, because again, you're going to get a lot of rejection in sales and you have to be resilient with it. I don't think I tested tenacity. I'll have to look way in the way
Yeah.
back when at that book, but I would bet tenacity would be one as well.
Question here though. Is this the
Mhm.
Hollywood or the, let's say, what's his name? Jordan Belfort, like the Wolf of Wall Street,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
uh, is it the Hollywood, uh, these glorious, like, over the top sales stories that you hear that gives me that negative taste in my mouth of, like, what a prototypical good sales guy is, which is a little on the edge of sleazy, a little maybe over the top and just exhausting and overbearing compared to what the reality is. Where does that come from? Because that is, I still have that perception in my mind today that like the top salespeople are people I probably don't want to be friends with.
Yeah. Well, just like anything else, there's all shapes and flavors of salespeople who are good and performing. I would argue the best sales folks are the ones that make it feel effortless.
Mm,
But depending on what you're selling, where you are, the offer, and all the things, sometimes high pressure sales works, but a lot of times you get the buyer's remorse, like the used car salesman, or you just start driving the car home and it dies along the side of the road before you get home. So, I mean, there are tactics out there that are effective. That's why actually going back to the sales style thing again, that's really important to iron out in the beginning and find out what boundaries you have with what you're going to do.
mhm.
Because you can use it, you know, you can use it for evil.
Yeah,
Um, but it's like a tool, just like anything with AI, with social media. It's up to the user.
yeah. Such a fascinating topic. And I think part of my reason why I say I don't like sales is I actually think I could be a really good salesperson because I can relate to people very quickly. And maybe I just have not formulated what sales means to me. I have this preconceived notion of what a salesperson is, and I just need to debunk that. And I need to just spend more time working through that, right?
Could be.
Question on this journey though. So you did your thesis. We talked about personalities, traits, and styles, which actually touches back to the beginning, which is this resilience, vitality, all of these different things that we're talking about. Let's move forward and talk to me about your first aha failure moment of like, wow, this is a massive learning for me. And
Mhm.
I'm gonna take this with me and do something different.
Yeah, so many. So like I said, I'd always had that entrepreneurial spirit. One
Hmm.
of the first side gigs I had while I was still trying to climb the corporate ladder and was getting really pissed off because nothing I was doing was working. Because I was not doing the politics game and I did not want to do that. Anyway,
Yeah, I hate it.
I tried to open a physical card delivery system. So essentially, you would sign up, you would sort of complete the selections, you would write a personal note in the card, and at the time that was like fancy technology because it had your actual signature. And then it would physically be mailed on a certain date so that your loved one would always get their card
Yeah.
in time. I worked with a developer who was a back-end developer, and the front end was a nightmare, and nobody could figure out how to use it. So that was like a huge learning, like not really related to what we're talking about, but very important to find someone who is good at to consider the front and the back end, the customer experience, all of that. Then I thought I was going to have a dead Facebook for a while. I was like, "Who's gonna go? Let's go find out who's kicked the bucket recently. That sounds
Yeah,
like a lot of
you
fun."
told me about this at our intro call, and when you said it, I was like, "That is one of the wildest thoughts I've ever heard." But let's dive deep into this. This is fantastic because I'm sure there was some insights on this. Back to the customers. By the way, you made a comment that it's not related to what we're talking. It's apps. All of this is related to what we're talking
Mm,
about because I am
okay.
now understanding you as a human being, and one, the customer service front facing part actually goes back to the sales part, to be honest. It's because like
Yeah.
you through a digital medium have to start having that meaningful conversation, right? And if you're doing that in the wrong way, it's going to be a straight up disaster. So that's a great
Yeah,
insight, lesson learned.
for
But let's
sure.
talk about dead Facebook. That's just a fascinating concept.
Yeah, that was an early view into the importance of picking your right business partner. So, had a business partner
Ooh.
who was super gung ho and then just never available. I had another failed venture with actually one of my mom's work friends. I don't know if you remember the penny auction sites.
Yes.
We were going to have one of those, and we got all the way to launch, and we needed some marketing dollars, and we just ran out of money. Um,
Mm,
Great guy, great person, just has a big heart. But yeah, need to make sure that we have all the expectations lined out clearly from the beginning, would be a learning from that.
talk to me about
Um,
business partners. What
mhm,
makes and for your again, there's no perfect answer for everybody. In your mind, what is valuable in a business partner
yeah.
as you're starting a company?
It's funny. One of my mentors told me that finding a business partner was more difficult than finding a spouse, and maybe even more important, depending.
Mhm.
Um, don't disagree there. For me, I have tended to not take business partners. I have taken one recently, and he is an absolutely amazing guy. I wasn't even really considering it, but the first time we met, it was actually we were both volunteering for the Startup Accelerator, and I think we were doing a sales workshop together, and I think we just kind of hit it off, and we're like, he had posed the idea to me because I have a really weird, unique background. He's
Yeah.
like, "You're the perfect person for this." So I was like, "Yeah, let's go." And we had lunch at my marina. So I have a sailboat. I sail, and I needed help with my outboard because it's this big, heavy, awkward thing, and I had to have it serviced. So I had to take it off the sailboat and all the things and put it back. And he was like, "I'll help you do that. That's no problem." I'm like, "Whoa, okay." Um, so to answer your question, I think the most important thing when it comes to picking a business partner is their character.
Ooh.
Um, do they have a big heart? Are they kind? Um, and then you have all the other kind of surface things like, do you have the same goals? Do you have the same sort of communication styles and preferences? What kind of hours are you going to work? Like those things are important too. But for me, like my business partner has a heart of gold. And I know if I needed to bury a body, he would totally help me, which I've never needed to do that, FYI. But
Yeah.
it's just that heart of gold, and that is a rare trait. So whenever the proposal, the opportunity was there, I was like, yes, because this human is just an amazing human.
Yeah. And when you think business partner, are you talking about you are owning a percentage of a company and going in to build a company, or how are you defining that? Like you're a co-founder? I just want your context on what do you mean by business partner in that sense?
Yeah. Well, in this case, I was like, well, what are you thinking on the split? He said 50-50. So we actually just kind of soft launched it last week. It's called salessage.co, where it's an agentic AI model that will go in and uncover issues with your sales reps before they hit your number. So there's
Mm,
usually a truth gap between what your sales rep tells you. Pipeline's great, we're going to get that contract signed soon.
Right.
And what is actually happening?
Right.
So, this system is designed in 10-minute pulses to come in and go deep with the sales rep and pull out potential issues so that the manager can get ahead of it before it hits the number.
Awesome. That's amazing. Can't wait to get into that. Before that, we have to hit on, by the way, we've been talking for like an hour and 15 minutes already. It seems like 5 minutes. It's amazing.
Agreed.
So let's do this. One, well, you have to touch on Facebook and just why that didn't pan out. And then two, one more kind of relevant moment in your career to transition into either the company that you're building right now or your consulting career, like whatever you want to talk about as what your relevant company is now that you're really concentrating a majority of your time on. So give me one more tidbit after the dead Facebook insight.
Sure. So the insight there is really to get an important, committed business partner and to ask the
Mm,
hard questions beforehand. This cat was in Birmingham, England. Also, that was a challenge already because of time zones. So,
yeah.
just I think the aha is just really think through what you want in a business partner. And if it's not feeling good, don't go into it because you're just going to waste your time.
Yeah.
So psychology, sales, all of that. And then this little 2020 pandemic thingy happened.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people had extra time, as did I. So um, I was at the time, I had just been convinced to buy a 65-foot seiner and live aboard on her on Lake Union in Seattle. Um, she was a mess. And, at first I was like, no, because I was dating this person. We were together total of 4 years and living together at that point. But, I have an adventurous spirit. And so the pitch was I can make it look like anything you want. Get your Pinterest account started and let's go. So eventually I said, okay. Um, the pandemic happened. I was in Belltown, Seattle. It was always kind of gritty, but it got real gritty after pandemic and
Oh
it
yeah.
was scary to go out after dark, even with a pit bull. So I ended up moving onto the boat. My boyfriend was stuck in Utah. He was doing flipping a house down there and needed to finish it and pandemic. And I have asthma and I was really freaked out. I didn't want to get COVID and die. So I was like, why don't you just stay down there, work on the house until there's a vaccine? But all the while, I'm living on this boat. Boat was built in 1950. She's wood. The power's going out. There's all these systems that I didn't want to learn, like the black
Hmm.
water, the heating. There was like this kerosene heater. It's like, I don't want to do any of this. And I was isolated. I was not in a good place.
Yeah.
So overthinking, drinking too much, freaked out about the boat, freaked out about the pandemic, trying to keep my consulting company alive. Then I fell upon The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Deutsch, and that changed everything. From there, I went deep into peer reviewed scientific journal articles on neuroscience because I discovered the brain is such a big component of what dictates our life. So from there, I started to see all of these bits of information that could help people if they weren't just buried in these peer reviewed scientific journal articles, and you can actually take the information out, translate it, and then make it to where people could apply this stuff to their lives. So I
Hmm.
was the guinea pig and I put a little program together and I put myself through it. And in essence, I rewired my brain. So I wasn't like borderline depressed, was not anxious as much. I was drinking less. I was overall much happier, basically because of knowing how to use my brain to my advantage. From there, I created a little pilot study and I put about 30 people through my program. and everybody had amazing results. This one guy told
Mm,
me that I decreased his anxiety by like 90%. A lot of people wanted to go to the gym more and be healthier, so I helped them do that. Procrastination, one person wanted to drink less. So from there, I created a mobile gaming app based in neuroscience research that changes your habits while you play called Reboot Your Brain. It is on Apple and Google. It's more of a passion project. Um, and then once I built that, I was like, okay, I kind of want to get back to my core in sales. And so that's now where we have neuroscience and sales coaching, both to help the solopreneurs be more effective, maybe who don't have a lot of experience in sales or have a really bad opinion of it, or people who are in enterprise or on commission earning a check if they're stuck or they want some help on how to get more resilient or how to get back in the game. That helps that as well.
beautiful. So let's talk about, do you want to talk about the soft launch company or do you want to talk
Sure.
about your current consulting gig? Because I want to pick one of them to kind of click down on. What would you prefer?
I mean, whatever. The neuroscience and sales one, that one ties directly into LinkedIn, personal branding, content creation, all that jazz. Whereas Sales Sage is um, more of a startup with just bootstrapping it ourselves. So definitely not looking for funding. So
Well, I like
that one.
I like both of them. Let's just start with the neuroscience. So I think what I'm trying to get at is if you were to, because a lot of times I have founders on that have a very specific company that they're building. So with your LinkedIn neuroscience sales stuff, is there a concise way that you can just kind of, in essence, an elevator pitch to say, here's what I'm really trying to accomplish with what I'm doing?
Sure. So I am really trying to ultimately help people get out of corporate. People
Mm,
who maybe have not had any experience with sales and are just completely clueless as to what to do or how to do it. Many times we overthink, we don't have confidence, we don't know what we're doing, we don't want to pressure people. We have the idea of the used car salesman in our head, and we sure as hell don't want to be that. So,
mhm.
how am I going to sell something online without being that person? And so, then a lot of times we'll just get in that analysis paralysis, never start, never leave corporate. So, I help my clients just kind of line it out in four pillars, if you will. So the first thing is I help them to get into their prospect's brain. So, what are the thoughts that your prospect is thinking that they never necessarily say out loud? So, for instance, for my ICP, they may say, I don't want to be pushy, or I'm too busy with content creation. I'm not going to get in the DMs. Or if they really wanted my help, they'd reach out to me. So, those are things that they're telling themselves. Every single ICP has a different set of subtext
What does
that you've got to
ICP
figure
mean?
out and tap. Huh?
What does ICP mean?
Oh, ideal customer profile.
Okay. So many
Your
acronyms.
target customer. I know. So your target customer. So if you really understand what's in their head, then you can create the content to address the problems, the website, the funnels, all the things. But if you
Yeah.
don't have that subtext right, you're going to go down the wrong track and wonder why you're not getting the conversions.
So
So, yeah.
talk to me about where what so one, I'm interested in your BD mechanism and what clients you typically seek out somebody like yourself. Where are you finding success? What does that look like? I'm interested in your funnel.
I 99% of my clients come from LinkedIn.
Mm,
So I use LinkedIn a lot.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I'm to a place too where I get a lot of inbound leads. I have a decent following, and I'm very dialed in to the struggles of my ICP. I try to solve their problems for them, try to help them through the content, fix a problem on their own.
Yeah. And so, who are the types of people though that are a common customer and people that you think your process helps?
Yeah, so solopreneurs, the people who are still in corporate, who are trying to transition out, they're disenchanted by corporate, they're tired of the politics or whatever, and they want to be able to live on their own terms, helping people in their own special way. But there's always the business side, there's always the sales side, and if they don't have that part figured out, they're not going to be able to live and do their passion. So a lot of times I'll help those folks, or again, people who are in sales roles. I help them as well. So the subtext is really just that first pillar. The second would be DMs and a proper DM sequence that
Mhm.
makes you seem like an actual human that's
Yeah,
relevant for your
right.
ICP. The third is content generation, and that takes the longest because there's so much that goes into content if it's going to do well or not.
Oh,
And then
so much.
lastly is when you're in front of the prospect and how you lead the prospect through to close in a non-slimy way.
Interesting. And so, as far as current clients, current things that you're seeing on LinkedIn and the ecosystem with everything that's changing with tech,
Mhm.
what are you kind of seeing now? And what are things that maybe are problems that you didn't have to deal with, let's say 2 years ago? How is the ecosystem changing?
Yeah, I mean, that changes frequently and often. There's a part I hear a lot of people tell me, I write for my customer. I don't care about the algorithm. Okay, great, but nobody's going to see what you're writing. So there's a way to write for your customer and complement the algorithm so that the stuff that you bother to create can actually get in front of the right eyeballs. So the algorithm changes constantly. You just have to kind of tweak, change the format, change a thing here and there, and you're fine. So for instance, if you're going to put an image in your content, it needs to be 1200 by 1500. Otherwise, LinkedIn is probably going to throttle it because it's just harder for it to adapt to different sizes of images. So make it easier on the algorithm. There's a likelihood it's going to go a little further. Another big thing I'm seeing, and I'm sure you are too, lots of automations, lots of AI. I mean, I can't tell
Yeah.
you how many time I get these messages that's like, "Hi, your name, blah, blah, blah." It's like, dude, come on. You couldn't even be bothered to test that. It's such a turn off. So I feel like we're gonna just see more and more AI and automations, although LinkedIn is really stopping third-party plugins and automations. Like, actually, one of my clients, uh, the sequence that I give the clients, it's not fast, but it's human and it's quality. So he wanted something that was faster. So against my direction, he got an automated tool and he got banned permanently. So they're really cracking down on the automations. So I think you said in the very beginning there's like a pendulum swing over to the human side of things, and I think that's just going to continue as AI becomes more and more embedded in absolutely every single thing we do.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting, and I think that's the do you here's the question, because you said pendulum swing, because things do go back and forth. Do you think this tech is gonna make such a monumental shift that, like, human connection, what we're doing, what you're trying to help people do by talking like a human being, not seeing AI or automated via DMs and sales, do you think that is just gonna become more and more valuable indefinitely? Or will it swing back
I
another way?
hope so. I half of me says, well, I mean, I hope so, but I think AI is improving every single day. And I think soon it's going to be very, very difficult to be able to discern between AI and a human.
I agree. I agree from a digital perspective, right? Even from
Yeah.
a platform like LinkedIn, like, listen, I can go to VO right now, record myself, and then tell it to do 100 variations of it, and you won't be able to tell the difference. Um, I think outside of digital platforms, what do you think that human connection part looks like? More and more paramount, or do you think people get lost in tech and metaverses and they don't give a crap?
I mean, I think it's gonna be both. I mean, it's always a bell curve, right? You've got
Mhm.
people who are super into tech, like maybe they don't even have actual sales teams, maybe they just have AI agents at this point.
Yeah.
And then you've got the, aversive, like, no, in my day, we just did a handshake. And so I think it's going to probably be a bell curve. I think because AI is so new right now, like we're still kind of seeing an upswing. And I mean, one of my businesses is in AI, so I'm a part of that too. But I think
Right.
there will be some kind of a back swing to humanness. But I think at the end of the day, there's going to be that bell curve.
Someone that is listening right now that loved a multitude, I mean, we talked about so many different things, um, but is interested in what you're doing with the no pressure sales and the kind of the neuroscience behind sales, um, and wants to reach out to you. How can they get a hold of you? And then two, who is the person that's listening now that might be on the fence, uh, that's like, "Oh, she's super interesting. I wanna reach out to her because 'cause I'm nervous, or I might not be the right fit." What would you say to these people?
Yeah, to the person who's thinking about it, just reach out, brainhacks by shannon.com. I had to remember my website. Also on LinkedIn, it's the Shannon Smith JDMS, letters after the name. Hot pink and yellow, be like butter. That's the one because there's a few Shannon Smiths out there, unfortunately.
Being like butter, I like it.
Yeah,
How about for
don't
the
be on
person that
the
is like, I don't think I'm the right person, but she's super interesting and might be able to help me. How about that person?
Yeah, I would say reach out and let's have a chat and figure out what makes sense. If nothing else, might be a fun chat.
See, this is the reason why I knew we were gonna get along the instant that we started talking is because I have the same philosophy. As far
Hmm.
as when people I think people really interpret sales though as like I have a physical product to sell or something very specific to
Mm.
sell. How do you when you deal with clients, is it typically that as like I have a product, a very specific product? Are you dealing with people selling things like even me, right? I'm selling, in essence, I'm selling an experience and a podcast and content. Who are you usually dealing with, and who do you like to deal with?
Yeah, primarily, I usually and like to deal with folks who sell services. So it could be a coaching of some sort, life coaching, spiritual coaching. It could be a B2B situation where maybe it's like finance consulting. So anyone who sells a service,
Mm,
I'm interested in chatting with and enjoy. And then conversely, on the enterprise side, if you're in a sales role now and you want to level up your sales skills, I can help you do that too.
beautiful. Anything else? So I got to start wrapping it down, but I do want to give you
Hmm.
an opportunity to talk about your also AI startup, sales focused startup. Do you want to talk about anything around that before I ask you the last couple questions that I ask every guest?
Yes, actually, right now we have a 14-day free trial. So there's really no reason not to give it a try. Like I said earlier, it's 10 minutes for each sales rep, and there's a really snazzy dashboard that the AI will pull out and disseminate in a form that's easily digestible. Things you would want to know, like what is this person's sales strength? What is their morale level? Are there any kind of manager nudges we need to push out for our teams? So it's salessage.co, and it really is an amazing tool. So give it a shot because you never know really what your reps are saying if it's true or not. Sorry, reps, but this is a way to validate it or get ahead of the issue in there before it becomes a problem for the company.
Fantastic. Can you hear that ringing, by the way?
A little bit.
Ah, sorry. Hold
That's
on. Let
okay.
me let me put that. We're gonna have to take that out post. That was my telegram ringing. Next 3 to 6 months
Mhm.
for your AI startup and your consulting, like coaching neuroscience practice. What do they look like? What are you excited about? And then I'll ask my kind of last question and we'll call it a day.
Okay. Neuroscience and sales. I have an event coming up December 15th that we're going to go deep on a lot of these concepts that we talked today. It is $49 normally, but if you say Mikey G, I'll let you sit in at no charge. So that's going to be a lot of really good, valuable, free information. My model is I give away the barn. I get my phrases wrong. I don't know. I give away the acres, the yard, whatever it is. So it'll be really good information. So I'll just be continuing to help clients and get out of corporate one by one. I'll continue to help salespeople level up what they're doing with the sales sage. Hopefully, we have the goal is 1,000 companies using it in 6 months. So
Ooh,
yeah,
I like
that's
it.
what that looks like for me. And I'll be doing some speaking gigs and maybe some more podcasts. Who knows?
This is the beginning. This is the beginning of have you been how many podcasts have you been on before? I don't remember.
I just started saying yes. So
Okay.
it's not, it's like, I'd say less than five. I've been
Okay.
asked to be on a lot of podcasts, but I didn't want to. And I was traveling for 8 months. So yeah.
Well, I feel honored then. That's fantastic. Okay, so we are I mean, we could talk for a lot longer and we have so
I
many
know.
more different conversations. I'd love to like just start doing little half-hour series because the thing I love about this too is now we have built this deeper understanding of each other. It will continue to get deep and we could just hop on for 20 minutes, do a really cool video about XYZ, pop that up on socials, and we're helping people even more. But the
Yeah,
last
I'm down.
question that I always ask everybody is, again, you just said you've been part of podcasts. You probably listened to a ton of podcasts. If someone were to ask you what it was like to be on the Mikey G podcast, what would you tell 'em?
This is my favorite so far.
Thank
And
you.
I don't have a lot of insights, but this is what I hope it would be every time. It's just a very informal conversation. Like you said, it feels like we've been talking for 5 minutes. You're very easy to talk with, and I just appreciate you having me on and the time you've taken for me today.
Thank you so much. See, this is again, yet I'm batting 100 here percent here because that's exactly what I'm going for. I think it's as simple as, you know what's beautiful? As you shared some intimate moments about your life, you have absolutely helped somebody today, but we did this all live online. And what did we have? We
Yeah.
had a 25-minute conversation before we even did this, and we're able to do this. And I think people think what we just did is so much harder than it actually is because really the things that I concentrate on, and I could tell you did this too. And this is the first thing that I want to say to give my feedback before we call it a day is um, I could just tell that you really cared and you were very engaged in the entire time that we were here. And you gave really meaningful answers and you deeply thought about that. And I think it's that simple. The more every time that I do this, hundreds of times that I've done this, I at least get to share that. If some one person, if the only thing that they take away from this is listen and just be a caring human being, we have made an impact today. And not only I know that we've done that, just the way that you've handled yourself and the way that you've responded and deeply thought, you've given some knowledge bombs. The things that I loved is we talked about love, and that was a beautiful conversation. We talked about hard work. I love how we even went off on a tangent in the beginning and talked about tenacity and resilience and grit and how important those were. I also love that we were really got to the point of how important it is to just be a genuine human being and how important that is going to be in the future And
Mhm.
I not like, I put all of my chips in 5 years ago on what we doing here is actually gonna become a lost art, and even if you can replicate it with I don't think for a while there's still gonna be a nuance of what we did, whether it's us intentionally screwing things up or fumbling over our words. There's just gonna be these human moments
Mhm.
that are going to still be hard to replicate by technology. But the other difference that technology can't do for a long time is, and as you'll see, this is I mean this bottom of my heart. This is the beginning of a friendship. And what AI cannot do is continue the conversation and eventually, hopefully, meet in real life at either an event or we're doing speaking engagements together, or I can link you up with another co founder that's going to help level up your business. These are the things, this is literally just the beginning of an endless amount of possibility. Now, the problem that happens is, as with a lot of founders and even myself, is we all get busy and we never follow up on it. But the one thing I can
Mhm.
promise you is that I'm not going to go anywhere and that I'm always just a DM and an email away. And it's not lost on me that you took an hour and a half of your life, how busy you are, and you shared everything that you shared. I'm firmly convinced we made an impact in this world, and it's mainly because of you. So thank you for being
Oh,
you, and thank you for your time.
thank you so much for being you, for your time, and for Ollie in the background there.
I was about to say, he came in at the perfect time, like, he gave a little face to the camera, and if for people to just, like, trying to interpret the vibe I'm going for, that couldn't have been more perfect towards the end for this little dude to just come by and start sleeping because, like, I just imagine like I told you before we came on, I want a dog, I want some s'mores, I want a campfire, like, that's what we want. I
Yes.
don't want this stuck up formal thing, like, dude, love Lex Friedman,
Yes.
love Diary of a CEO, but I'm just a click down when it comes to more vibey and informal, and he just put the icing on the cake there at the end, so, thank you
Love
so
that.
much for your time, and with that being
Thank
said,
you.
people, Mikey G and Shannon